Okay, Georgia with a suffocating 34-3 win over the Clemson Tigers. It's so loud on the field. I'm just not going to go out there. But I did want to talk about this win, obviously, for Georgia. Hand holding, maybe not for long now that I see this. I'm hand holding this. Look, I think for Georgia, this was a big win. I don't think it was. If you were listening to me, I told you they're the under and that they'd cover. That they'd cover didn't look so hot. The under looked great the whole time. So this was a pretty thorough beating. Um, the negativity is going to be coming from the Clemson folks towards Dabo. I don't know if it's totally justified, but it's when your offense can't go for 200 yards, like in Georgia. One thing Matt DeBerry said to me a second ago, he said, Georgia looks faster on defense. That's hard for me to see on the field. What I can see on the field is the suddenness of guys. Nate Frazier, he's your number two back. He's your number two running back. It's Etienne and then Frazier. Um, it took Carson Beck a second or two. This was a tough day. I mean, I asked Kirby post game about the 55-yard field goal, and he said, "Yeah, that was a little uncomfortable for me. He didn't want to do it, but that was an important moment, getting up 6-0. They had a shot to make it 13-0 going into the half, but it didn't quite happen. So you had that. Um, Clemson just couldn't do anything on offense. Phil Moffitt is fine. Again, you're not running that guy 30 times and beating Georgia. So it just Kate Klubnik. Um, I actually think Clemson played okay today. I do. I think they played okay. I think that they are what they are, and that's what they are. Like they're not. We're not talking about a team that's going to win the national championship. They are. They are a long way from winning the national championship. This was a solid see where we're at moment for Georgia. And if you're just looking at the statistics, 169 yards rushing. I mean, like Georgia couldn't run the ball at all at the beginning of the game. Nobody could. Um, and then they just kind of took over. I'm trying to find a spot where I can. Here we go. So I don't want y'all complaining about the sound because you'd be justified about that. But I think it's a great start for Georgia. I think when you're sitting there watching it, you're like, can these guys win the national championship? Is this a team that can win the national championship? And you watch the first quarter or whatever it was. No, it didn't look great at all. But then it just became sort of a slow motion blowout, I like to call it sometimes, because that's an adequate thing. We got, Cash Jones got to chill out on these runs, man. Like, we're not trying to embarrass people. That was inappropriate. 15-yard touchdown run. Yeah. I mean, Arian Smith played well. It could be even better. I think Dylan Bell caught some cramps or something. Landon Humphreys was really good today. So this is what I thought the problem specifically for Clemson would be, which is that like I forget guys that play for Georgia. I know I shouldn't say it like that. What I mean is like Landon Humphreys does not enter the lexicon of my brain when I'm thinking if Georgia's going to beat somebody. That he's not. I don't. He doesn't. He's not in my consideration. It's is Michael Williams going to have a good game? How about Carson Beck? How about Etienne? What about Lovett or in the past Brock Bowers or McConkey or whoever? I mean, he had two I would call huge catches. The one that kind of pushed Georgia out in front in a way that was like it was not Clemson was not coming back. Listen, a couple things. First of all, when Clemson kicked the field goal, they didn't score a touchdown when they were down 13-0. The game was over then, and that there was another 20 minutes left in the game, and then Georgia landslided them. I read about this in what's it called on Final Feelings, where they can just swamp you quick. I mean, that half the game was Georgia winning 6-0. Okay, then they racked off 28 points. They won the second half 28-3, if my DeKalb County math is correct. So I told my wife after the game, obviously a huge Clemson fan, her family, my in-laws and all that were here, I think. And, they played well, I think, Clemson. They do not have the firepower of Georgia. What today taught us was, yes, Georgia has firepower. They do. It took them a little bit of time. This will be one of the better defenses they play. I don't think this is, I mean, Ohio State's better than this, probably. Probably. This has been a bad weekend. This has been a bad start for the ACC. My opinion is we're going to watch the Canes. My opinion is either Clemson or Georgia Tech is the best team in that league right now. We'll see what happens in Miami. It's 4:30. I'm trying. Daddy's trying to get back to Athens. You know what I mean? I'm trying to wrap this up. But like this performance, this is not winning you a national championship. This is a great start. This doesn't do anything other than get you to, say, well, yeah, they're the number one team. They look like the number one team. They didn't the whole time. But it's no one will play a more difficult game than this. Notre Dame perhaps at A&M, but no one else is playing a top 14 team that's ranked. Okay, except Notre Dame on the road, but they're playing on the road at A&M. This, I would say, the field. When you're on the field, you could see everything. And the upper deck was almost all Georgia. Even in the Clemson area, it was a lot of Georgia. I don't think I'll have to ask Matt, and y'all will see this after we do drive home, but I don't know that 70% Georgia was out of the realm of question. It was probably 67%, something like that. Maybe 70 was a little bit rough, but um, I don't know. There were a lot of Georgia people, and there was plenty of Clemson people, but they were not out of their sections. Like there were dots of Georgia people all through the Clemson section. There was a couple orange out and about in the other side. I think Jalen Walker had a good game. The defense played great. KJ Bolden flashed. I don't. Did Sammy Brown play? Um, because oh no, don't stop. That'd be outstanding. Um, Georgia almost had 500 yards today. At 447 on 60 plays was a slow game. Like that's a low. That's not a lot of volume of plays. The Peyton Woodring, 55 yarder. You stroke in a 55 yarder. Okay, that's a big risk to take because if Clemson gets the ball, they're getting the ball not midfield but quasi midfield. And let me tell you, they needed it midfield because they couldn't do anything. That offense. I'm gonna talk about Clemson later, but when he knocked in that kick, I was like, this is starting to get out of hand for Clemson. Like they're not gonna be able to pull this back in because they can't move the ball. Um, but that was a big deal, and that came with 4 minutes to go in the half. And Georgia, I'll coming off memory, I think they got it started going back down the field the other way, maybe after a 3-and-out or something like that. But they couldn't kind of capitalize on their moment. And instead of it being, almost game over, 13-0, we went into the half 6-0. I think Georgia scored. I think Georgia scored on the first. Here you. I think Georgia scored on the first. You get it. It's fine. Um, thank you. Sorry about that. I think Georgia scored on the first drive in that first half. They almost had to because they got the ball and they scored 12 minutes. So for me, sometimes games can be blurs because I'm not watching on TV. But when he scored and Clemson responded, which is a big deal, and only responded with a field goal, the game was over at that moment. There was nothing left. And then soon thereafter, with Nate Frazier getting a 1-yard touchdown, Georgia was going to go for two. Like Clemson was not ready for the beginning of this game. I don't know if look, like that's somebody's kid. I'm not trying to talk a lot of noise, but he was not prepared for what he had gotten himself into here. You're talking about, and when I say he was not prepared, that reflects on the staff at Clemson. Maybe I would look at another guy because we've seen this now a lot, and it's not working. So he was just not ready. Moffa's fine, whatever. Um, but Georgia has explosion. Frazier is sudden. Dylan Bell is sudden. We didn't see Etienne today. I mean, so clearly out for the suspension, I'm assuming, from DUI. Kirby won't talk about that, which is his prerogative. But, If I were Georgia, I would want that thing settled because someone's going to ask on Monday, is he suspended for this game? Like it's a completely legitimate. We don't know the answer, so it's if you don't know the answer, you're not going to tell us. That doesn't mean people aren't going to ask the question. Everybody wants to know. You could just send a statement out, and this whole thing is over. I mean, the kid had a DUI, right? He got arrested. Then those charges were dropped. In my opinion, if you're Georgia, you send a thing out. He served a 1-game suspension, but Kirby's backed himself into a corner saying we don't talk about it. It makes it a bigger story in my mind. But it's his program. I mean, like I'm not like mad about it or anything. I'm just saying there's another side to it, and I hope they thought about it. If they thought about both those sides and said, "Well, we're just not going to talk about it at all," that's fine. But there's ramifications from that. Make sure you're signed up for our newsletter. The link is right down below. I'm going to be at Red Zone on Clayton Street in Athens, downtown. I saw Scott and Mindy at the game. We were late to the game because of the buses for Clemson and Georgia. We had to sit and wait for about 35 minutes. Did not like that at all. But the second half, when you are outscoring sort of a legitimate foe, 28-ish to 3, it shows what Georgia can be offensively. I do think they missed ETN today. I think they stuck with Branson Robinson a lot, which, is fine. But he was not – when you are in a telephone booth, which is what this game was, guys like Branson Robinson sort of are hitting your head against the wall after a while. It was smart to switch to Frazier. He went for about 7.5 yards a carry. And Dylan Bell was explosive right out the gate, and they have some serious explosion. Clemson either doesn't have a lot of it, or they can't get it to the explosion. I thought Brennan Stoll had an unbelievable catch. If he doesn't make that catch, they don't score. That was the problem for Clemson. Was they're so limited in terms of what they can and cannot do. They only had so much time. They protected pretty well today. He was only sacked twice. But he made a lot of bad decisions, Clubman, that he was inaccurate right off the bat. Was he nervous? I'm not him. I don't know. But you can't, he was either nervous or inaccurate. I mean, inaccurate a lot. And, it ain't working, man. That thing, if that were Georgia, people would be freaking out. Scoring 3 points? Georgia's defense is really good. But Ohio State scored 41 on them, or 40. That used to be Clemson. They used to be able to explode. And they had, T. Higgins. They had the kid from Lake Marion. They had, obviously Trevor and Deshaun. And they had ETN. They had guys that you had to worry about. Their offensive line was not great, but they had, they had guys. Their 5 stars played like 5 stars. Kate Klubnik played like a high 3-star today at best. And I'm not trying to kill the kid. 18 to 23. He was sacked twice. He had 1 interception. I don't know how many drives. I don't have the drive chart with me. That's basically 3 drives you don't get. And if you only have, 11 drives and you're just flushing 3 of them down the toilet. Carson was sacked once. I can't remember when that was. It might have been that he was moving forward and got sacked. But Clemson's offense is not where it needs to be. And you cannot rely on a defense that's going to get ground down over time. That's a good defense. It's probably not as good as Georgia's defense. It's probably not as good as Ohio State's defense, and on and on. But the winner of the ACC very well may be Clemson, a team that lost by 31 points today. And if Georgia doesn't win the ACC, Clemson will have an advantage over Georgia by not playing an extra game. That is ridiculous. You know it. I know it. We've seen in the ACC this lately. We've seen Western Carolina go toe-to-toe with NC State for 35 minutes. We've seen Georgia Tech beat Florida State. We've seen one of the best teams in the league lose by 31. We've seen, that hit that under, for sure. I was telling y'all that, the under. We've seen Virginia Tech lose to Vanderbilt, as a almost 14-point favorite. It's not a good league. And unless Miami is like really pulling the rope the whole way here, no. So we got real questions. Greg, I saw Greg Sankey at the on the field today, and like the way that this is right now, that's not going to work. It's not fair. The runner up to the Big Ten and the runner up to the SEC should not be forfeiting buys to whoever wins the ACC. Shouldn't happen. Now, if Tech comes through, goes undefeated, or doesn't even go undefeated, has a loss or two, beats Georgia and Athens, wins the league, yeah, that's different. But that, like, I just don't even know what to say about stuff after a while. Like, we got to make it right. But, I think it's a good start for Georgia. Kirby said we out physicaled them. Yeah, you got that part right. I mean, they completely out physicaled them. It was a big time physical performance. You know, what can you make of this so far? I don't know yet. Um, I, at Kentucky will be harder than this, probably. Probably. That's a road game. You're not going to have a lot of road games, and when you do, they're going to be tough. And this was step one. You've got a lot of steps. Like, they could have lost this game coming into it. Yeah, this is a losable game, and they won by 31. So, the other thing to remember when you're watching these games too is, Georgia. I'm gonna walk back to the photo here because we're about to leave. I hope Georgia. These games are 60 minutes. They're not the first quarter. They're not, and Georgia's advantage almost always comes over time, not everybody can hang for the first 10 minutes of a football game, unless you're Ole Miss or whoever got thumped in Kentucky last year. Georgia can do that, but most games are difficult. They're challenging things. The other team gets to play. The other team gets to scheme. The other guys make one-handed catches, and like there's a lot of stuff that other people do and can do, and like there's talent. Everybody has talent, you know. But everybody, I thought it was a thorough win. I don't think it was like anything. There's no national champions yet. Yeah. You gotta talk in my ear. Yeah. We keep it. Hey, let's relax. All right. Very quick, Ryan Curley thoughts. Like I'm trying to.
Domination, right? It's what we told you all week was going to happen.
The under. Some of us hit the under and.
I think all of us hit the spread there, but 25-ish point. They actually outdid themselves, in my opinion.
Georgia.
In terms of the score, but it took them a long time to get rolling. I think it's fine in the first game, right? It happened a lot last year. This was a common theme. It took them time.
It did.
They can beat you in one quarter, and that's what
right.
They beat you in the third quarter. That's what happened to Clemson. This is what he's talking about when he's talking about being elite. Right?
Okay. This right here. Oh my God. All right, we're elite. Hey, check out the newsletter. Thanks for watching.